Welcome back, my weirdlings. We have stepped into quarter 3 of Raven's Lorecast, the season of stewardship. If quarter 1 was about remembering where we came from, and quarter 2 was about crossing thresholds into becoming, quarter 3 is about responsibility, about what happens after the awakening, about tending what we've built, holding what we've learned, choosing who we become when no one is watching. This is the season of sovereignty, of discernment, of craft, of devotion. Not because perfection is required, but because power means something different once we understand its consequences. So wherever you're listening from, kitchen, car, porch, workplace, walking trail, or beneath the stars, I'm glad you're here, because this quarter, we are not chasing transformation. We are learning how to carry it. All right, my weirdlings, let's begin. Welcome, my weird ones. Take a breath with me. Slow and deliberate. Let it reach places you usually rush past. You're here now, not at the beginning, not at the ending, but at a pause that asks something of you. This is the threshold of summer. Not the loud one, not the festival gate, not the blazing crown of the season. This is the moment before the light crests, before growth tips into excess, before power forgets how heavy it is. The moon is waning tonight, past fullness, past revelation. She has already shown what needed to be seen. Now she watches. This is the Judgement moon, the moon that doesn't ask what can be done, but what must be carried responsibly. If you feel quieter than usual, if the questions have softened into weight rather than urgency, if you're no longer looking for signs, but feeling their consequence, you're not lost. You're maturing. Quarter 3 is not about awakening. It's about stewardship, about what you do once you know better, about how you hold fire without letting it scorch what you love, about becoming someone who guards, not just gathers. So wherever you are, kitchen, car, bed, porch, halfway between tasks, let this moment mark you. You don't need tools. You don't need certainty. You don't need permission. You only need honesty. Take another breath. Feel your body settle into gravity. Feel the quiet strength of simply being present. Tonight, we are not chasing illumination. We are practicing restraint. We are learning what it means to keep the flame, not steal it, not worship it, but tend it. This is Raven at the threshold of summer, not a trickster, not a thief, but as watcher. Stay with me. The fire is strong tonight, and it matters how we stand beside it. There is a moment in every cycle that stories don't like to linger on. Not the beginning, not the catastrophe, not the miracle, but the moment after power has proven itself, and before it is allowed to run unchecked. That moment belongs to the moon. Not the moon of beginnings, not the moon of blood or spectacle, but the Judgement moon, the waning moon that asks not what can be done, but what should be carried forward. This is the moon that appears when the fire is already lit, when the light is already strong, when the danger is no longer ignorance, but excess. And across cultures, across centuries, this is the moment when guardians appear. Not heroes, not conquerors, not thieves of fire, guardians. Those who swear an oath not to expand power, but to hold it. In the old seasonal myth cycles of Northern Europe, summer does not begin with celebration. It begins with restraint. At midsummer, the Oak King, the embodiment of solar power, stands at the height of his strength. The land is green, the fields are full, the light seems endless. And this is precisely when he must be wounded. Not because he has failed, but because no king may rule without limit. In these stories, the king's wound is not punishment, it is containment. The land cannot survive endless growth. The crops would rot, the rivers would flood, the heat would scorch what it once nourished. So the king is cut, or bound, or sacrificed. The lesson is stark and unromantic. Power that refuses restraint becomes tyranny, even when it begins as blessing. This is not a story about darkness defeating light. It is a story about light learning its limits. And the waning moon presides over this moment, not as an executioner, but as a judge. She does not extinguish the fire. She decides how much may remain. This is the first oath of guardianship, to wound what we love just enough to keep it alive. In ancient Egypt, the sun did not always appear as a benevolent. Sometimes it took the form of Sekhmet, lioness, solar flame, divine rage. Sekhmet is unleashed to restore cosmic order, and she succeeds too well. She drinks blood, she burns cities, she does exactly what she was created to do, without restraint. And when the gods realize the world will not survive her fire, they do not fight her, they redirect her. They pour out beer dyed red like blood. Sekhmet drinks, she sleeps, and when she wakes, she has become Hathor, joyful, fertile, sustaining. This is not a myth of defeat. This is a myth of ethical intervention. Power is not destroyed, it is transformed. And notice who intervenes. Not a warrior, not a hero, but keepers of balance. Those who recognize that righteous force, left unchecked, will annihilate what it was meant to protect. This is the Judgment Moon's work, to say enough, not in anger, but in care. The guardian's oath here is clear. I will not let my fire consume the world I love. In the Shinto tradition, the sun herself is a goddess, Amaterasu. When betrayed and wounded, she retreats into a cave, and the world begins to die. Darkness spreads, crops fail, chaos grows. But the gods do not drag her out. They gather, they create ritual, they bring mirrors, they laugh, they prepare the world to receive her differently. Amaterasu does not return in rage. She returns in reflection. The light that re-enters the world is not uncontrolled. It is contained by reverence. This is one of the clearest myths of sacred restraint. The problem was never light itself. The problem was light without boundary. Here, guardianship looks like preparation, not force. The Judgment Moon's lesson here is subtle. Sometimes the most sacred act is not bringing the light back, but deciding how it returns. Early Raven stories are about theft. Raven steals light, Raven steals fire, Raven breaks open what was hoarded. But later cycles tell a quieter story. Raven as keeper, Raven as boundary walker, Raven as the one who knows when not to interfere. In some traditions, Raven guards the salmon runs. In others, Raven regulates seasons. In still others, Raven stands watch at the edge between worlds. This is not the Raven of chaos. This is the Raven of consequence. The cleverness remains, but it is now guided by restraint. Raven has learned the final lesson of power. Just because you can take something does not mean you should. This is the mature trickster, the guardian trickster, the one who understands that wisdom without ethics becomes destruction in disguise. This is Raven under the Judgment Moon, no longer stealing fire, but keeping the flame. Across these stories, different lands, different gods, different symbols, the same truth repeats. When power reaches its height, a guardian must appear, not to end the cycle, but to turn it. The waning moon is the celestial witness to this moment. She sees what the sun cannot, because she reflects rather than radiates. She asks, what must be limited? What must be softened? What must be protected from itself? This is not the work of beginners. This is the work of those who have already seen the light and lived to regret what it could do unrestrained. There is no ceremony for this oath. No altar, no witnesses. It is taken quietly, usually without realizing it. It sounds like, I will stop before I take too much. I will hold what I could exploit. I will protect what I once wanted to conquer. This is the oath of summer's threshold, the oath of the Judgment Moon, the oath Raven takes when cleverness gives way to care. And it is the oath being offered to you now, not to dim your light, but to aim it. Because the most dangerous thing in the world is not darkness, it is light without restraint. This is where summer begins, not in celebration, but in responsibility. And Raven stands watch. Tonight feels like the universe standing very close, not blocking the door, not pushing you through, just close enough that you can feel its presence, like it's saying, you're nearer than you think. June 7th is not a sky of endings. It's not a sky of arrivals. It's a sky of approach. And if you've felt that strange sensation lately, that something is lining up, that a decision is forming before you've put words to it, that you're done circling the same questions, you're not imagining it, you're standing in the long corridor before the doorway. So let's walk through what's happening, the astronomy, the astrology, the meaning, and how to use this sky not as a forecast, but as orientation. Tonight, the moon is waning, which means she's already been full, already revealed, already illuminated the thing you couldn't avoid seeing. A waning gibbous moon carries just over half her light, enough brightness to see clearly, but not enough to pretend everything is fine. This phase isn't about gathering information. It's about metabolizing it. This is the moon that asks, what did you learn? What stayed with you? What are you still carrying that you don't need anymore? Waning moons don't create urgency. They create honesty. They surface the quiet realization that something made sense once and doesn't anymore. And because this moon moves through the part of the sky associated with wider vision, collective awareness, and perspective beyond the personal, she asks you to step back, not to detach, to contextualize, to see your life not as a crisis, but as a process, not as a failure, but as a phase. If you've felt yourself loosening lately, less reactive, less desperate to define everything, that's not apathy, that's integration. Now let's talk about what's happening low in the west after sunset. Venus and Jupiter are drawing closer to one another, not yet joined, not yet merged, but undeniably approaching. And this matters. Venus governs value, desire, connection. What makes life feel worth inhabiting? Jupiter governs meaning, belief, expansion, the stories we live inside. When Venus and Jupiter approach, the question becomes simple and uncomfortably honest. Does what brings you pleasure also bring you meaning? Or have you been keeping those things separate? This is not a sky of instant alignment. It's a sky of recognition, of seeing where joy and purpose want to meet, even if they haven't yet. And nearby, low and fleeting in the twilight, Mercury appears briefly before slipping away, a messenger that doesn't linger, a reminder that insight often arrives quietly and leaves just as quietly if you're not paying attention. This sky rewards presence, not certainty, not performance, presence. If you want something grounding, something you can point at and say, there you are. This is not the night for spectacle. It's the night for anchors. For those with patience or tools, ancient stars gather in tight communion far beyond naked eye visibility. A globular cluster bound together for billions of years. Old light, enduring connection, strength through cohesion, not dominance. And overhead, familiar constellations continue their steady work, guides, not prophecies. The message here isn't, look how rare this is. It's, look how long this has lasted. Now step back even further. We are roughly 2 weeks from the summer solstice. Light is nearing its maximum stretch. Growth is everywhere. The world is full. And here's the truth summer teaches, whether we want to hear it or not. Unchecked growth doesn't equal wisdom. It equals overwhelm. This is the moment before the peak, when life asks not if it will expand, but how it will be held. This is where discernment becomes essential. because abundance without boundaries becomes depletion. Astrologically, the sun moves through Gemini, the sign of curiosity, conversation, connection. Gemini reminds us that meaning isn't static, it's relational. It's made between ideas, between people, between what you thought you knew and what you're willing to reconsider. Gemini season doesn't reward certainty, it rewards listening, and listening is a discipline. Just days ago, Jupiter entered Cancer, and this changes the tone of growth entirely. Jupiter in Cancer expands through safety, belonging, nourishment, protection, emotional honesty. This is not growth through conquest, it's growth through containment. It asks, what can you finally allow yourself to feel safe enough to become? This is power that holds, not power that consumes. And beneath it all, Saturn and Neptune continue their long work together in Aries. Saturn says commit, Neptune says dream. Aries says live it. This is not gentle energy, it's forged energy. It says insight is no longer enough. Awareness is no longer enough. Becoming now requires embodiment. Not someday, now. Here's your ritual for tonight. Simple, grounded, honest. Light one candle. Not to ask for answers, to mark proximity. Say aloud, I am close enough now to choose differently. Write one sentence. The thing I am no longer willing to circle is, and fill in the blank. Then stop. No second sentence, no solution. Let the truth sit. Because thresholds don't respond to urgency. They respond to readiness. Tonight, the moon is waning. Venus and Jupiter are approaching. The solstice is ahead. Nothing is exploding. Nothing is ending. But something is near. And if you feel that quiet pressure, that readiness without panic, good. That's what alignment feels like before it announces itself. You don't need to leap. You don't need to rush. You only need to notice that you're closer than you've ever been before. And this time, you know how to choose. Before we go any further, let's do something simple. Let's feed the body. Not as distraction, not as indulgence, but as preparation. Because quarter 3 is not about gathering more knowledge. It's about holding what you already carry. And the body needs to be steady for that. Tonight's kitchen witchery is not a feast. It's not a fast. It's a grounding meal. The kind eaten by those who stand watch, those who carry responsibility, those who are learning discernment instead of expansion. This is threshold food, bread and fruit, the oldest pairing there is. This meal has 2 parts, and they work together. The bread of oath and measure, and the fruit of judgment and tempered knowledge. Bread is law. Bread is agreement. Bread is what we promise to carry forward. Fruit is consequence. Fruit is choice. Fruit is what knowledge becomes when it meets heat. Together, they teach the lesson quarter 3 will keep returning to. Power must be fed. but it must also be restrained. This food does not rush you. It does not stimulate. It does not overwhelm. It settles. And that is exactly what we want right now. This is a barley bread in spirit. Barley is the grain of law, of ration, of covenant, of guardianship. Beer is grain transformed through patience, sweetness made sober, fire softened by time. This bread is for those who are no longer proving anything. It is nourishment without excess, strength without indulgence. Here are the ingredients. 3 cups gluten-free all-purpose flour blend, 1 tablespoon baking powder, 1 teaspoon salt, 2 tablespoons brown sugar, 12 ounces gluten-free beer, room temperature, 1/4 cup melted butter or olive oil or plant-based butter. If you desire to make it a little bit more fancy, you can add a pinch of rosemary for remembrance or cracked black pepper for clarity, but simplicity is part of the magic here. Begin by preheating your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. As the oven warms, take a breath. That sound, that quiet hum of heat building, is the sound of transformation that does not rush itself. Grease a loaf pan or line it with parchment. This pan is your container, your boundary, your measure. In a bowl, combine the flour, baking powder, salt, and brown sugar. Stir slowly. This is not the moment for speed. This is the moment for evenness. As you stir, think of the things in your life that require steadiness rather than urgency. Think of what you are learning to hold without gripping too tightly. Now pour in the beer. Listen to it fizz. That quiet, living sound is fermentation, change under control. Stir just until combined. Do not overmix. This bread does not benefit from force. Pour the batter into the pan. Drizzle the melted butter or oil over the top. Before you place it in the oven, pause. Hands on the pan if that feels right, and speak softly. I accept nourishment without excess. I carry what I am given with care. Place the pan in the oven. Bake for 45 to 50 minutes until the top is golden and a knife comes out clean. While it bakes, do not hover. Guardians know when to step back. Let's move on to our fruit. Apples are never just apples. They are fruit that appears at moments of choice, of consequence, of judgment. Cut crosswise, they reveal a star, a reminder that knowledge carries responsibility. Tonight, we do not eat them raw. We do not bite in haste. We roast them, because heat transforms sharp truth into something the body can hold. The ingredients are 4 firm apples, any variety that holds its shape well, 4 tablespoons butter or plant-based butter, 4 tablespoons brown sugar, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon ground clove. Now begin by preheating the oven if it isn't already warm from the bread. Wash the apples, then carefully remove the cores, leaving the apples whole. These hollow centers matter. They are places of intention, of choice, of filling. In a small bowl, mix the butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, and clove. This mixture is warmth, sweetness, constraint. Spoon it into the center of each apple. As you do, consider this. What knowledge in your life has asked to be tempered? What truth has needed time rather than reaction? Place the apples in a baking dish. Add a small splash of water to the bottom of the pan. Cover loosely with foil. Roast at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. Then uncover and roast another 15 to 20 minutes until the apples are soft and fragrant, but still holding their shape. They should not collapse. They should not dissolve. This is not destruction. This is integration. As the bread cools and the apples rest, let the kitchen fill with scent. This is the smell of restraint done kindly, of sweetness that knows its limits, of nourishment chosen with awareness. This meal is not here to impress. It is here to prepare you. Quarter 3 will ask for discernment, for ethical clarity, for responsibility with what you already know. This food grounds the nervous system so those lessons can land. When the bread has cooled enough to slice, cut a thick, honest piece. Not thin, not stingy. Place one apple beside it. Before you eat, pause and say, silently or aloud, I take only what I can hold. I carry only what I can tend. Take the first bite of bread. Feel how solid it is, how unshowy, how reliable. Then take the apple. Notice how heat has softened what was once sharp, how sweetness deepens rather than overwhelms. This is judgment without cruelty. This is guardianship without fear. This is not a meal you rush through. Eat slowly. Chew fully. Let your body register safety, because discernment cannot grow in a body that feels unsteady. This food does not prepare you for performance. It prepares you for watchfulness, for the kind of knowing that doesn't shout, for the kind of power that doesn't need to prove itself. This is the nourishment of the guardian's oath, and you will feel its steadiness long after the dishes are washed. Take a final breath with me. In and out. Good. We've walked through fire tonight, not the kind that burns everything down, but the kind that asks to be held carefully. You've listened to the old stories. You've tasted the weight of nourishment chosen with intention. You've felt the moon, not pulling, but measuring. And now we arrive at the closing of the circle. This is where guardianship becomes real. Here is the truth most traditions only whisper. Power does not announce when it becomes dangerous. It feels good first. It feels expansive. It feels justified. That is why judgment matters. Not punishment, judgment. The kind that asks, is this mine to take? Is this mine to carry? Is this mine to protect? The judgment moon does not strip you of your light. She asks you to aim it. She asks you to decide what you will no longer expand, because expansion without care is just another form of harm. Quarter 3 will not ask you to become brighter. It will ask you to become truer. Truer in your boundaries. Truer in your appetites. Truer in what you say yes to and what you finally stop feeding. So before we part, I want you to take one quiet moment. Not to promise, not to swear, just to acknowledge. Somewhere inside you, an oath has already formed. It sounds like, I will stop before I take too much. I will hold what I could exploit. I will protect what once tempted me. That is the guardian's oath. You won't announce it. You won't perform it. You'll live it in kitchens, in conversations, in choices no one applauds. That's how you'll know it's real. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not lacking light. You are standing at the exact place where wisdom begins to matter. The fire does not need more fuel tonight. It needs a keeper. Feel your feet. Feel your steadiness. Feel the quiet strength of choosing restraint. This is how summer begins, not in celebration, but in responsibility. Until next time, my beautiful weirdlings at the edge. If tonight stirred something in you, if a story lingered, if a question followed you home, if a truth settled quietly beside you, that's the work. Quarter 3 is about stewardship, about recognizing that wisdom is not what we learn, it's what we choose to do with what we've learned. If you'd like to keep walking beside me between episodes, you can find Raven's Lorecast on Facebook, Blue Sky, TikTok, Threads, and Instagram. That's where the conversation continues. The stories expand and the circle remains open. And if you're called to go a little deeper, Patreon is waiting when the time feels right. No pressure, no obligation, just another seat closer to the fire. Until next time, take good care of what you've been given and take good care of yourself. See you next week, my weirdlings.